Hi everyone, my name is Abby Waddell and I currently work as Vice President of Security Testing, and I'm also the founder of Inquirix, which provides research and services on OSINT vulnerability assessments, primarily for non-profits. I'm going to talk about some of the open source techniques to locate the source of cyber breaches and the identity of suspects that have been used successfully. So why OSINT? Breach recon activities are not usually captured by existing tools and methods, either pre or post-incident, mainly because such activities occur away from the company network. OSINT data can be anything available to the public, including deep websites and also data which is out on the open, but shouldn't be, usually from unintentional leakage. An example could be that I email a hotel reception about my room booking, but they respond to me with an email that is intended for a different customer by mistake. Or a web page is misconfigured and shows a list of hidden files and directories, which anyone can access if they are technically able to. So I'll talk about some useful methods of obtaining information from documents, social media, password leak repositories, websites and forums, with some examples of how threat actors have been identified using these methods, which have been developed from years of research and original discovery. So firstly, I'm going to discuss some little tricks to reveal hidden material. Just to note that any blue rectangles covering stuff in this presentation are for redaction privacy purposes. For user profile images in Instagram and Twitter, it is sometimes possible to reveal the parts of the image hidden by the way the image is presented on these platforms. So not everyone's profile photos allow this to be done, but when they do, it can sometimes reveal useful information. So in the example on the left, this person's neck tattoos are revealed, very useful if there is a need for identification. The example on the right shows more clearly the woman next to this user's photo. It's very simple to view the entire image. Just save it locally and open it up, or you can open the photo from the platform in a separate browser window. Another useful trick is to be able to view a PDF file before any edits have been made using editing tools. So on the left is a PDF of an invoice from Amazon, and on the right, key details of this same document have been altered in order to forge the invoice amount details in the delivery recipient. The Edge browser PDF editing tool was used to do this. If one opens this document in Google Docs, however, not the Google Drive preview, but Google Docs, then this strips away these edits, so you can see the document as it was before the changes were made. Cropped screenshots and images within Microsoft files such as PowerPoint, Excel, and Word documents can reveal the portions of the area deleted but not completely removed. So low classification files can therefore still present a risk of sensitive data leakage, leading to reputational damage, network and system compromise. Examples of sensitive data could be anything visible on one's desktop at the time of either performing the screenshot or image use, such as internal web directories in the URL visible from the browser, staff personal details, calendar entries, contents of open sensitive files, and so on. So in this way, one can use this technique to find out more about the author and origin of any Microsoft created media that is under assessment. So this is an example of how this happens. So the screenshot of the Inquirix logo is taken, and note the surrounding views of open websites and other documents. So the unwanted parts of the image are cropped, but then the user forgets to actively delete these cropped parts. So this is an easy mistake, as it requires remembering to do this and manually doing this step in the application. So there's no software control for this, and that does this automatically. So this is a nifty free tool. Wait a second. Sorry, I skipped ahead there. So basically, this is a tool which can be obtained on the Inquirix site. It reveals those parts of the screenshots in Microsoft files which have been cropped but not fully deleted. So no installation is necessary, and you only need Microsoft Excel installed with any third-party add-ins disabled. Very simply, just upload the files you want checked, and it will extract all the images and save them to a results file. These images can then be viewed, and they will show the full screenshot with any undeleted areas. As can be seen from this example, the deleted or cropped parts of this particular image are revealed. The yellow box surrounds what was intended to be viewed, but instead the whole screenshot prior to any cropping can be seen. Restricting editing rights within Microsoft won't prevent this, and there is no patch. So one useful method of getting intel on suspects is to use the account recovery function on applications, as this sometimes reveals user details such as email addresses, usernames, and device info. It requires attempting to log on to the website using the suspect's email address or username and then seeing what information comes back. It's basically the offline equivalent of knocking on someone's house and seeing who answers. So you're not basically trespassing or performing any account compromise. So the examples here show the information returned on Facebook and Gmail when one goes through these steps to reset the user's passwords. Their passwords are not actually reset as you would stop the process before at this point, and it's enough to basically get the information shown. So in this case, partial email addresses and device phone numbers. It's often possible to guess the redacted emails, and even having just the last 2 digits of a phone number can corroborate information held elsewhere. And the same method can be used on the UK's British Telecom website. Only a username or phone number can be guessed here to get the redacted information. Likewise, Microsoft Office provides this kind of user data, and it's a useful source as it appears most of the world's computer users have a Microsoft account. Twitter reveals user data in the forgot password function, and here is one of the UK's main banks providing clues as to the length of the user's password. The user's NatWest customer account number, which is made up of their date of birth, is needed to log into their account on the website. And then without needing to know any other information, one can see how many characters their password has when the application requests various characters to be entered from this password. So knowing the length of this word can help guess the current password using previously leaked password data. And this password may be likely to be used on other sites where it's being reused. So one way of tracing or profiling suspects is to look for matches of the writing they use. So this is an example of running a search of the exact wording used on the user profile of an advert of a particular malware vendor on Alphabet, which then gave some results of other black market sites he was using. So in this case, the wording of the terms and conditions is exactly the same on his other sites. It's also useful to determine the gender of the user by analyzing their writing through an online analysis tool such as GenderGuessr. So whilst this is not strictly OSINT, for those who already have legal access to a suspect's account, there are some sites worth exploring to get a better picture of their activities and location. So Grammarly profiles may show draft documents, even with the free version, and these documents might contain personal details and other metadata. Fitness and sat-nav apps can show users' location, including historic locations, not just in vehicles, but if they've set up walking or jogging routes. Hotel, train, and flight booking sites are also a good location for data, and it's also useful to link current credit cards with the physical addresses in use, current email addresses, and so on. I would estimate the vast majority of users in the UK, for instance, are registered on any one of either the Tesco, Amazon, BBC, or Netflix sites. So understanding the sites where a suspect is registered on can help with profiling them. For instance, if they have accounts on lifestyle and clothing sites, they're more likely to be women. Women make up 90% of the users on the popular Mumsnet site. Site registrations on sports sites tend to point to a higher likelihood of a user being male. Parking apps may point to use of ownership of a car, and train and phone company site registrations may point to a country of origin. There are some techniques that can be used to discover the person behind a forum pseudonym. In the forum search area, you can do a search for the username plus the first 2 digits of the commonly used phone prefix for your country. For instance, Sammy1 and 07 may bring up this person's phone number, in this case a mobile, and then a search can be done on the entire number in Google, etc. In some instances, users mention their email address in the messages, and so a search for the @ symbol is worthwhile. It is noticeable that people are much more cautious about mentioning their personal details in recent years than before, so it pays to research the oldest messages as well as the newer ones, where a user may be more likely to have divulged more personal information. Oops. Another technique is to search for the username plus the words for sale or wanted, because if this user has mentioned having things for sale, etc., they sometimes give clues as to their hometown, and even that might be enough to cross-match that with their username to lead to results. Some users will mention landmarks near to where they live, and it sometimes becomes a simple case of deduction using online maps to work out their location. So there was one real example where a user mentioned in different posts and at various times that he lived equidistant to 3 alternative energy farms, 2 miles south of a specific river, next to a railway line, near a newly built supermarket, and with a close view of a famous landmark. It was then possible to triangulate with 95% accuracy his location. Another useful technique is to scrutinize any media with the user uploads to the forum, for instance, images. So sometimes these images are hosted on other servers where their username, which may be different to the one they have on the forum, is visible in the URL. So further searches of this username on Google and popular deep web sites may then point to their real identity. Often in forum discussions, especially with users who have been on the forum a while, who have made a lot of posts, the other users might address them by their real name, either because they've met them in person or they've engaged in a lot of private messaging. In one actual case, a user of interest was given a nickname by another user based on his surname. So a Google search was then run on this nickname, which led to the easy discovery of his real name. Searches can also be made in the forum for the username plus sign-off words and abbreviations, which sometimes actually give away their first name. So an example is you search of Sammy1 and ATB for all the best, which can be swapped for thanks or HX, and take care, and so on. The Skype online directory is a useful place to find details such as alternative usernames, country location, and images. And less useful but still worth knowing is torrent file names, which sometimes give away the user's operating system and username. So as mentioned before, one should always check links to media and other sites from forum posts, as these can also give alternative usernames, such as in this example where a particular user had a different username on the photo bucket site. And this is just to highlight the benefits of using Bing Maps over Google Maps. So these are example images of the same 2 map locations, and you can see how Bing Maps shows the colors and the detail much more. So it's always worth using Bing. Facebook is often a valuable resource for finding information, for forensic and other purposes, and this highlights some useful methods of doing this. Facebook's search function produces more results the more the parameters are defined. For instance, a search can be made for a standard phone prefix with the option to just look for content posted by that user selected. And this will sometimes bring up past posts the user has made mentioning their full phone number on which further searches can be made. So to find employees working for a specific company, as before, the more the search is defined, the more the results will come up. The example shows a search for all those who say in their profile that they work for Electronic Arts and whose name contains the letter S. That was just a random example. So it rivals LinkedIn in that respect. Checking the profile name as shown in the URL of a profile is worthwhile, as this could show a person's maiden name, their middle name, or middle name initials, and sometimes a nickname. It may also point to the fact that the profile is fake. This is another example of having to add more search parameters in order to get any results. A search for Obeda212 in this example comes back with no exact match, but refining the search, for instance in this case specifying a year, produces an exact match along with a retweeted post from Twitter. On Twitter itself, this post had been deleted, but it was still partially visible in Facebook, so Facebook's actually quite useful for finding deleted tweets. It's also useful to know how to construct queries when the search needs to be more defined. So searches are made up of parameters which are then base64 encoded. Location and user IDs have their own ID number, as shown in these examples. Location IDs can be found by running any search query using the platform's search function and entering the location of choice, after which the base64 string in the URL can be decoded to get the specific numeric ID for that location. One can receive a user ID by viewing the HTML source code and the profile of interest and search in this source code for the user ID. The following shows how a search query can be constructed. So this is an example. The word top means all categories, such as posts, people, or photos, but you could just use a single category. The Q equals is followed by a keyword, in this case, knitting. And then the filters parameter, which refines the query, can also include user ID, location ID, and exact dates. The query is then base64 encoded and run from the URL. To find the contacts of a user who has prevented others from seeing their friends list, one can view any photos, images, and videos that may be present in their profile and view the list of users who have reacted to them. So with the list of friends, it's useful, especially in the case of a man, as they do not usually change their surname after marriage, to search for any users who have the same surname as the user, as they're likely to be family members. Researching family members may then help build a fuller picture of the user in question. And where there are lots of photos in the profile of interest, it's useful to check only those pictures who have a higher likelihood of having a greater number of reactions, rather than wading through hundreds and hundreds of photos, which might not be worth it. So in general, there's certain types of photos which attract more user response than others. Photos showing close-ups of a face generally receive higher number of user reactions, as do photos of special occasions, such as weddings and ceremonies, people wearing smart or attractive clothing, and studio quality images. It's often useful to discern whether a social media account is fake. Fake profiles on Facebook and other social media sites tend to have the following hallmarks, and the greater number of these characteristics, and the greater likelihood that the profile is not genuine. So the first post date or the join date is relatively recent. It's possible to backdate or hide Facebook posts. And so using the app we've created, which I'll mention in a minute, this can help find the actual date a profile was created. The profile name is different to the profile name as seen in the URL. As previously mentioned, this usually means that the name has been changed from what it originally was, which could have been the user's real name or the name of an account bought from a third party. The likes, photos, and posts are on a single topic. So fake profiles, especially for those created for a single purpose, are usually dominated by one overriding theme. For instance, if a profile was created to market a particular brand of lawnmower, there would be predominantly photos of lawnmowers and likes around that specific interest, but to the exclusion of much else. As such, there wouldn't be photos of the kids, the family holidays, mentions of other topics, and so on. And the profile photo may even represent that particular topic rather than being of an actual person. The photos and the profile go over the top. So if a fake profile belongs to someone who's keen to show to the world that they are of a certain view and are of a certain type, their photos, mentions, and likes will be very single-themed, but also exaggerated, perhaps to encourage others to believe that they conform to a standard social stereotype. There are no posts or photos or other content, so an empty profile may just mean that the owner has not got around to populating the sections yet, or it may be a profile which only needs to be bare bones in order to fit a singular or temporary purpose. The person's age does not accord with the profile content. The friends are from a different culture, like location and possibly language, which is more obvious when an account has been bought from a third party. There are no friends who have the same surname, so most normal profiles have some family members shown as friends, and if there are no other friends showing the same surname, this may point to the account being fake. The presence of links to friends whose profiles are also fake, particularly common if many of them are engaged in contentious activities. A reverse image search reveals the presence of the same image on other sites. So fake accounts may use stock or other images obtained from Google, etc. Profile pictures which do not show a clear image of the face. And depending on the purpose of the account, the presence of 1,000 or more friends or under 20 friends may point to the account being fake. So 2 friends may indicate that it's been recently created, or too many may be due to the fact that the account has been bought secondhand, or is being used for a single purpose, such as marketing or sales. If an account has been bought secondhand, there's more likely to be inconsistencies due to the presence of a bot-created account or an account created for a single purpose. and also if there's no reply to private messages. Single instances of any of the above don't basically mean that the account is fake. It's whether you have lots of these altogether that could point to that. The Facebook LinkedIn profile join date estimator tool, sorry, a bit of a mouthful, which you can download for free from our site, can ascertain with 98% accuracy the date a profile was created on these platforms to within the closest 60 days. So the user interface has changed since this slide, and the updated version is still to be issued, however. So you basically enter the target profile's name, and their join date will come back instantly. A profile's join date is not readily available, even sometimes to the owner of a profile, and it's only by cross-matching the platform's user ID number with dates in the app can the user's join date be discovered. If a suspect profile has a join date that's very recent or much more recent than their stated post, then this may point to the profile being fake. Lastly, it's worth exploring the chain of contacts in a profile of interest in order to generate further profile leads. So as mentioned before, on many profiles, it will not be possible to see the friends list of someone, but it's possible to retrieve some of the target profile's contacts through the image and other content reactions. So in the diagram on the right, A is the start profile, B, C, D, E, and F are A's immediate or first level friends of interest, and their friends are A's secondary level friends, and their friends in turn are A's tertiary level contacts. So this is an example scenario of how such an analysis can assist in illicit trade research. Janet Doe lives in New York and runs a shop which has ancient Greek and Roman antiquities for sale. It's suspected that she may have links with dealers and others who are facilitating the source and transport of stolen antiquities. Her Facebook settings have been configured to prevent her non-friends from viewing her friends list. A search of her name produces a list of 30 names who have made comments on her Facebook profile. A further search of these comments reveals that there is a user, Jerry Green, based in Munich, who owns a freight and storage company. A search of Jerry shows that he has many Facebook connections to people who work or live near archaeological sites in Turkey. One of these contacts has videos and images of using and selling metal detecting equipment, and another contact here has advertised unclean coins for sale. So by tracking the chain of contacts, it may be possible to surmise how and where Janet Doe is obtaining the antiquities for her store. So we've created a tool to automate this analysis, but it needs further development. Search engine backlinks are often a useful way of generating leads or investigating breaches. Backlinks are inbound links to a website which get added to a search engine's site ranking, and there are a number of places which record these backlinks. They're also useful for showing old and current links to a site along with relevant dates and times. So this example shows some backlinks to the anonfiles.com file repository site. And this is a screenshot of one particular link found, which offers a file of leaked emails and passwords for download. These examples show links to a carding site and a darknet hacking service site, all found through backlinks. Publicly available lists of leaked accounts are useful when trying to ascertain more about a person's personal identity. So passwords often represent something which has a strong personal significance, such as a family member's name, a favorite sports team, or a meaningful date or location. In some leaked repositories, it's possible to search under many different criteria, even when the known data is sparse. In some leaked repositories, it's possible to search under many different criteria, under usernames and IP addresses and other information, which can basically allow lead generation searches of potential suspects in criminal matters. So in this example, the account user list revealed hundreds of users globally who had chosen passwords which pointed to a very high likelihood of their involvement in specific crimes such as terrorism, drug dealing, and child pornography. Recently, I conducted a study of thousands of leaked passwords and the gender of those that they belong to. Those passwords which contain special characters belonged equally between the genders, but what was interesting is that the special characters placed in the middle of the password, so not at the beginning or the end, 26% of such passwords belong to women and 74% to men. So even more noteworthy was that the special characters used by the women in this sample were the @ symbol, the hash, and the percentage signs. and only the men chose the underscore, the dollar, and question mark symbols. There were even more definite differences between the genders on their choice of password. Women were over 3 times more likely to use their first name in their password than men, but men were over twice as likely to use their surname. Men were also 4 times more likely to use their first name and surname in the same password than women, and nearly twice as likely to use their email account domain name in their password. Perhaps the most interesting find of all is the use of first names in passwords. So I looked at whether the gender of the password owner affected the choice of the first name used. Males were 1.39 times more likely to choose a female name as opposed to a male name, and out of the females choosing first names, they were over twice as likely to choose a male name. So what we have here is that men are more likely to choose a female name, and females are more likely to choose a male name for their password. So could this be why ships and other forms of transport, like cars, are traditionally given female names? Is this because the ship's engineers and owners were mostly men? Standard theory on this is that ships are usually given female names because it symbolizes the protective goddess or the mother with its womb-like container vessel. I would propose that the more likely reason is that the ship's owners and designers were men who naturally thought of a female name when naming them. Likewise, if the ship's owners and engineers had been mostly women in the past, we might have had more male-named ships. Public records are useful in investigations to link common entities to build a picture of any corporate relationships. So 2 apparently separate business entities may be shown to be linked through common domain names and web service providers. So looking at domain registration records on local registries can sometimes reveal the administrative and technical contact data, as opposed to others which remove this data due to privacy regulations. So in this example, we can see the contact addresses of this particular website based in the UAE by looking at this UAE-based domain search site. Company records will sometimes contain useful information about a suspect, even when they may have been altered they may have altered some of their personal details on the official records to avoid detection. Regarding the official UK company records site, an online search of a director will show their month and year of birth, but on some official company documents, usually scans of paper records, such as change of director details, the full date of birth can be seen. So it's always worth checking these uploaded company filing documents rather than just the on-screen version. Some directors have also been to deliberately misspell their name or swap their first and middle names. Open source data can also be obtained from exposed network devices owned by both companies or private users. And this gives a bit on what we can see with little technical skill needed. So this 4G IoT Netcom device login screen was accessed over a browser, and it wasn't necessary to log in to see the status details, which showed the IMEI, the IMSI, firmware, and other information. This Nebra hotspot crypto miner device was accessible over this specific port and showed the device's version, the MAC address, Helium miner address, and frequency. The other example on the right shows the files accessible over anonymous FTP access on port 21 on a Samsung DVR device. For legal purposes, anonymous system access is considered within the bounds of open source, and this has been verified by legal experts on cyber law. With suspected IP addresses, it's sometimes useful to look at the open ports, not just on the address in question, but on other addresses belonging to the same ISP within the same range, as they may belong to the same threat actor. In this example, the vulnerability exploitation tool Metasploit was found to be running on port 3790 on the suspect address, and then other addresses in this range were searched to see if this port was open on them, which led to another address, which was found to have various hacking software accessible on port 80. Torrent peer connections can show IP address and country location, and this is quite useful for those looking for those seeding or leaching data leaks as well as pirated content. The SBI server map shows those who have registered their software-defined radios, as servers on the site show which are live, their location, and other details like their OS, the type of device in use, IP address, and username. And then you can basically then get the location coordinates of a particular SDR device. And then it's possible to target surrounding radio frequency transmitters using Wi-Fi hotspots by using the advertised SDR server to scan for signals in the locality. This is still within the bounds of open source, as the SDR server in this case is meant to be accessed by the public. Other useful RF sites include OpenCell ID to see the location and details of cell towers, and the Helium Explorer map, which shows the location of all active Helium cryptocurrency mining devices. If you suspect a particular device of interest, either because of its owner or its geographical location, it's possible to find out more about the device model if it's an iPhone and has the Find My iPhone service enabled, and you know the user's iCloud credentials, because one can basically skip the two-factor authentication in order to use the app via the browser. Obviously, this is meant to happen. This is a feature which is there by design, as it allows users who have lost their phone to find it. And they only need to log into iCloud to do this. And clearly this is something that only those with authority to use those credentials should do. But knowing that the user here has an iPhone 12, we can assume that ultra-wideband is in use, and this information may be useful if conducting further assessments in their locality. So ultra-wideband applications for phones include the Apple Car Key, media file transfers, and connection with home IoT devices. This app we created extracts IP addresses from forensic artifacts such as log files and flags if any of them belong to one of the popular free VPN services, which do not require a credit card sign-up. So the assumption is that those seeking to conduct nefarious activities would be more likely to use services without needing a credit card for greater anonymity. So this app basically highlights potentially suspicious source IP addresses. You just need to upload the log or paste the text file, and the app extracts all the IP addresses and cross-matches it with the ranges belonging to those VPN services which currently do not require a credit card to sign up for. I've recently discovered a way that one can jump into WebEx video conference meetings using just a browser and without needing a meeting invitation. I won't be showing how this is done exactly as it's still going through the responsible disclosure process. But even if one can't join a particular meeting, it's sometimes possible to see the user's profile picture, which may not be publicly visible. Credential stealer logs can provide more than just usernames and passwords. So here's an excerpt of the logs belonging to a suspected cybercriminal, which shows some of the sites they have visited or have an account on. The ones in the large font have been highlighted as they point to their sources and methods, as well as the services they use to hide their tracks. If you think a suspect has multiple websites, it's sometimes useful to compare the fonts in use between the sites to see if they have the same author. A handy way to do this is to press the Control key plus Shift and C, and then highlight any text on the website to see the fonts in use, as in this example. I'm going to show some examples of putting all this into action with some recent cases, starting with this particular darknet malware hack tools supplier. So cross-matching the username found on Alphabet with data and password leaks, we find a password containing 1731. We also search for this username being used as a password, and this leads to finding a reference to another password containing the number 1731 and an email address. The password appeared to contain a first name. Other email addresses are also found being associated with the 1731 password, as well as 2 IP addresses for this user, and a phone number, all based in Algeria. A Google search was done for this phone number and first name, and we found this person and his associated physical address. This case involved hunting a threat actor who had breached a large telco. We only had a username to go on. Starting with a Google search of this name, we found a slight variant of it, which led to this forum and showed a photo of a user, his Brazil country location, and a Facebook profile link. The profile name switched out letters for numbers in a similar manner to the username, so we just swapped the letters back to get a surname. A search on the password leak list showed some passwords and a Hotmail address. Using the forgot password function on Google for this address, we found 2 phone devices associated with this account, and on iCloud, one of these devices had a phone number ending in 77. Searches of the Brazilian equivalent of John, along with other information, led to a reference where a user, by these details, asked on a forum for a cracked version of some gaming software, and also led to an account on the hacking forum nulled. Although the previous Facebook profile had been deleted, it was still possible to locate his Skype and Instagram profiles where there were a lot of photos of him. The Instagram profile revealed his birthday, his probable work, employer, and his hometown in Brazil. And this is also corroborated with the IP addresses found in the password leak lists. Lastly, this involved searching for the identity of someone offering red list prohibited wildlife for sale, such as cheetah and lion cubs in various countries. The adverts contained a contact form, and after we made this initial contact, we engaged in some email dialogue, which got us an email address and a phone number. A search for this number was made on WhatsApp, as sometimes WhatsApp is useful for revealing profile descriptions and pictures. It is possible to look someone up on WhatsApp using the add a contact process without this person knowing you've done this. On this occasion, though, WhatsApp didn't provide any information, but Skype and Gmail gave us a username and partial Gmail addresses. So using a bit of guesswork with some of the redacted Gmail addresses, we found a person's name, business email, company names, and country location. Further password, email address, and names cross-matching on the password leak list brought up more leads, which led to this export company based in South Africa, which I believe was being used to facilitate the export of illicit products, such as pharmaceuticals as well as wildlife. So to conclude, I hope this helps with locating the source and identity of cyber breaches and criminal suspects. Cybersecurity consultants are usually more successful with answering the question of what an attacker did and how they did it, but rarely who has done something. So many thanks for listening, and I hope that was useful.